What up? I'm Bee and welcome to my channel where we talk about all things true crime and current events. Today we're going to be taking a look at Gabbie Hanna's video, Time to Talk About My Bad Poetry. It currently has about 474,000 views and it was just posted just a few days ago on April 16th. And I'm assuming she's going to be talking about this book. I also am assuming that she's probably going to mention her new book. She has a new poetry book called Dandelion that you can pre-order right now. I read the description of it, and from the description on Target's website, it would appear that this book, Adultolescence by Gabbie Hanna, was like a show-stopping, outstanding success. And yeah, it was very successful. She is now a New York Times best-selling author, but people bought it because they wanted to support Gabby. Not because a few people bought it, said it was life-changing, earth-shattering, incredible, and then convinced all their friends to buy it, and then more people read it, said it was good, and continued on in the process. You know, it was really just about supporting their favorite creator. And at the time that this book came out, I was a big Gabbie Hanna fan. I bought this book brand new because I was like, I like poetry, I like creative stuff, I want to support her, let me get it. And I mean, there's nothing I can tell you about this book that you haven't heard. It's not great. I will say there are a few good poems in here. Like, there are some that are genuinely thoughtful, planned out. They seem like there was a lot of effort actually put into them. But those are few and far between, which is why so many different people have made so many different videos criticizing her poetry. And to be quite frank, the ones that I've seen, they weren't too mean, but the criticism was absolutely deserved. I mean, some of the poems are just... There's one that's literally a text message, like, bubble that says K, and then it says, like, read or seen. You know, it's... Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, read, 9:22 p.m. I don't know if it's too bright for you to see it. But literally, that's what the poem is. And then next to it, it says, Advice 11. I've always been afraid to put eyeshadow under my eye, BC, because... I thought my eyes looked too droopy, but one day I started doing it and someone commented on my Insta pic, "This is your best look yet." And I realized, wow, I should have been doing this for years. But then someone else commented, "Your makeup looks like shit." And I realized, wow, you can't make everyone happy, so just make you happy. So yeah, long story short, I have made several videos about Gabby before, and as with those, I want to just emphasize that I do not hate Gabby. I am no longer a fan of hers. I think she's done some really incredibly bad things and behaved in a way that I would not be proud if I behaved in that same way, or if I had a friend who was acting like that. I would definitely want to talk to them about it and say, hey, like, this isn't cool. We gotta figure this out. But the point of this video is not to just tear her down. I'm not going to be bringing up a lot of the past things I have criticized her for unless they are brought up within this video, because I don't want to like hound on the same thing over and over again. I have said my piece when it comes to both the Jessie Smile situation as well as the turning myself into an e-girl situation. I will link both of those videos in the cards, so if you haven't seen them and you know, you're interested in my thoughts, you can definitely go check out either of those two videos. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hear what she has to say about adultolescence and her bad poetry. Oh, and a little side note before we get started, I am super excited to let you know that by the time you're seeing this, I have a YouTube membership tier. So it's called the Off Limits membership. It's $1.99 per month, and there's absolutely no pressure to join. Like, this is just a little bonus. Everything content-wise on my channel is going to stay the same. You're not going to get any less content. But if you do want to join the Off Limits membership and support me in that way, that would be incredible. Like I said, it's $1.99 per month, and what you would get with that is access to exclusive community posts as well as a live stream the second Tuesday of every month, where we talk about basically everything that YouTube monetization says is off limits that would get my videos suppressed. So stuff that is a little bit darker or a little bit heavier on the YouTube drama side, as well as within true crime, you'll be able to give me suggestions and really talk about the kind of topics that you want to engage in conversations with me about. Like I said, that'll be the second Tuesday of every month, and knowing me, I probably won't be able to stick to just doing one exclusive live stream per month, so you might get even more with that. No guarantees, but I mean, probably. So if you want to join and support me in that way, that would be so, so awesome. But like I said, totally understand if you're like, not interested, not now, not the time. So I just wanted to let you know about that. You can click the join button down below if you are interested in getting into the Off Limits membership. But that's all I have to say about that. Let's get into the video.
Hey, I am super uncomfortable right now and very nervous and anxious because I'm going to be talking about something that I've been putting off for a long time, and that is all of the talk around something that means honestly a lot to me. So let's talk about my poetry.
Let's do it.
Welcome back. Before I get into everything that's been going around the last few months, the tweets, the comments, the memes, I need to start by saying this. Right now, this very moment, my next book, Dandelion, this is the cover. This is the cover reveal right now. Let's put it over here. There's more space over here. Dandelion, my sophomore collection of poetry, is available for pre-order. The book is called Dandelion for reasons that will become clear when you read the book, and also when you hear the single that comes out tomorrow, actually tonight at midnight, that is right.
Okay, something about Gabbie Hanna is, like, she wrote another poetry book, fine. Her music. Two-Way Mirror was actually very good, and it makes me very sad that I enjoyed it so much because I don't watch Gabby's videos anymore. I don't support her. I don't want to support her because it doesn't feel right with everything that we have seen over the past few months, and it really bums me out because, I mean, Two-Way Mirror was good, and I did really enjoy it. And now I'm just like, well, enjoying that is over.
I have a single by the same name, Dandelion, off my new EP that's coming up. Set your alarms, get ready. But that is not why we're here today. We're talking about the fact that this is finally available for pre-order. I am so excited and just honestly relieved, guys, because I've been working on this book since before Adult Lessons even came out. And
What? Why? I mean, I get, like, here's the thing, like, I get working on, like, more than one project at once. If it's a whole, like, conceptual book, that's totally fine. But with Adolescence, part of what Gabby said in her, like, vlogs before it came out is she's like, they want more, they're filling it up and putting in some, like, throwaway poems is a phrase I remember her saying. And so it's like, if you're trying to create more and more and more and, like, actually fill this book up, maybe don't work on that. Like, I'm sure she prioritized her time, but it makes me kind of leery to hear her say that she's been working on it since before Adolescence, and then Adolescence has so many of those throwaway poems, and yet she continues to say, like, my poetry is so deep, it's on several different levels, you have to really look in for all the hidden meanings and turns of phrase. And it's just like, no, like, you put some good poems in there. There are some good poems, like, there really are, but the majority of it is just not good. It's just not good. And it's not that, because you could say, like, maybe I'm not the right audience for it, or, art is subjective and it isn't for everyone. But if so many people are saying, like, this just isn't good and it doesn't feel like you put a lot of effort into it, there's got to be something to that. But anyway, I'll let her get on with it.
I just finished it. I am so proud of the entire book, but especially my illustrations. My drawing has gotten so much better, and I've grown so much from literally the first time I picked up an iPad for Adolescence until now. And the time, energy, and everything just finally coming to fruition to this moment through all of the talk of adultolescence, and this whole time I'm planning the release of the next book. I had a lot more time to plan and design this book. The pages are beautiful, they're playful, they're unique, they play with each other, they communicate with each other. It's a beautiful, intricate piece of work that I'm
That's what she says about literally everything she puts out, and at some point, I just don't know if that's truly how she feels, or if she's trying to like up it and up it and up it and make it seem like she's more complex than she actually is, because I feel like she says that about so many different projects she puts out, and at the end of the day, it's just like, you know, with certain songs she has said it, and at the end of the day, it's like, that song would have been good on its own. You don't have to come out here and say that it has, 16 different meanings and you just have to look for them. It can just be good on its own. It doesn't have to be played up like this, but maybe she really does feel that way, and she's very excited for it, clearly, so I will be happy for her.
Finally sharing with you guys, October 13th is the official release date, but the pre-order starts officially now, so you can pre-order your book, or should I say, books. Here's the dope part that was pretty unexpected, but very exciting. There are 3 different versions of this book with very different content. This was very unexpected, but when Simon & Schuster was selling my book to the retailers, Barnes & Noble asked for their own exclusive edition, meaning they wanted exclusive content that nobody else had so that their book was special, because adultolescence did really well for them. They wanted to display the book and they wanted to be a Barnes & Noble exclusive. And then Target also wanted an exclusive edition because adultolescence did very well for them, so they wanted exclusive content in their edition as well. So because
I'm wondering if Barnes & Noble and Target are going to be a little bit disappointed, because now that the hype for, like, when adultolescence came out, it was hyped. But now the allure of Gabby's poetry has kind of gone down a level or two, and so I wonder if this book is going to do as well as adultolescence did, because a lot of people did want it, but a lot of people were also left kind of disappointed by it, so we'll have to see about that.
Because I was now including exclusive content in 2 of the retailers, I decided it would only be fair for the primary edition, that is the same base book, to have its own exclusive content as well. So if you're buying on Amazon, if you're buying in independent bookstores, you also get exclusive content. So all 3 books have very different content. A lot of it, it's very beefy. So there's tons of extras in each book, depending on where you buy it, and all of them are available for pre-order, linked below right now.
I don't know how that works with all the complexities and intricacies and all the pages talking to each other. That sounds like a big undertaking. It sounds like a lot, and it kind of sounds like an overpromise, but
if you click the one link that I have, you'll be able to see the different editions. So let me explain to you what each copy has so you know what your buying preference is. And don't worry, we are going to get into the stuff that you guys all want to talk about, which is adultolescence. But first, let's give Dandelion its moments. Yes. So in the primary edition, you get the base book, which is what Dandelion was originally. Plus, I've included personal stories and essays from my childhood and relationships that I've never spoken about because they were too... I talk about relationships when they're funny or if there's a laugh to be had about it, and then some of them are just so dark that it's not funny to tell it anyway. People also often ask me about the childhood trauma that I've alluded to over the last 6 years, but I don't speak about very publicly. So I decided to open up in a way that I can give some answers and insight to people that didn't involve sitting down and talking to a camera about it. I've ironically always had trouble verbalizing things that are traumatic. Even in therapy, I have a really hard time bringing myself to say words that I'm trying to communicate. But when it comes to writing, whether it be essays, poetry, or songwriting, I'm able to pour out everything in some form or another. So included in the online and independent bookstores edition, you will be getting essays, stories, a very memoir style, like a mini memoir. If you're wondering if I'm having any type of anxiety or second thoughts about including this stuff, the answer is a very resounding and strong yes. But I do think that it might be therapeutic in some way for me and hopefully for some of you. In the Barnes & Noble edition, I love this edition so much, to the point that this was actually supposed to be its own book, but this version holds my Letters to Strangers project. So I am an empath, and I often pick up on and am heavily affected by the energies of other people, even strangers. Because of that, I often find myself having very deep, one-way spiritual experiences with strangers. So for the last couple years or so, I've been writing letters to them to let them know how they've impacted me and what I've learned from them. They're usually written when I'm at home or in my car sobbing over an experience, whether it's a little girl I saw in the grocery store, or a parking attendant, or a homeless man I saw on the street, or a kid that I could feel the insecurity and pain radiating off of them, or somebody who showed me an act of kindness. I really love this project because it shows how much you can affect people without ever knowing, and the power that you hold.
I feel like that's such a hot phrase. What's the word? Like it's like a trend now to be an empath. Like I'm such an empath. I feel things so deeply. And a lot of people are. Like a lot of people really are empaths, but I feel like it's just kind of like the new trend. It's very in style. And so a lot of times when people say that so confidently, I'm like, are you really though? It gives me pause.
I just love this project so much. That is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. And the last one is the Target exclusive edition.
Let's hear it.
I really, really had a ton of fun with this one. For the last couple of years, especially the last few months, I've been non-stop drawing to the point where I stopped enjoying it because it became less of a hobby and more of work. Like I've had my face glued to my iPad, corneas hurting, hand cramping, meticulously perfecting my artwork. And I swore when I was done, I'm not gonna write, I'm not gonna draw for months. But literally the day after I submitted my draft for Dandelion, I found myself dying to draw. And I realized I don't have a deadline, I can just draw for fun again. So the Target edition is full of fun, weird illustrations, fun drawing challenges and experiments that I came up with my sisters, my brother, my boyfriend, my friends. They're just fun, cool, weird, and handwritten lyrics from unreleased songs and spoken word pieces. It's definitely the most fun, artistic, and visually stimulating of the 3 copies. And if you're a fan of my music specifically, this is a really cool piece to have in your collection. It would be absolutely impossible for me to pick a favorite edition of this book. They're all very near and dear to my heart for very different reasons. Click the link below, pick your edition, choose one or the other, collect them all. It's totally up to your preference, and I'm so excited to be able to offer so much additional content. Also, if you pre-order instead of waiting to buy, there are going to be a lot of incentives down the road. Sorry, this is a lot of information. There's just a lot of information. So everybody who pre-orders instead of waiting to buy until October 13th gets a printable PDF of a coloring book and activity page. It's very fun. The original plan was to send one out, a physical copy, to everybody who pre-ordered with their book, but because everything is shut down and the printing presses are not running, there's just absolutely no way that we could make that happen in time. Trust me, I tried very hard, but it's just not possible. So the next best thing I can do is send everybody a PDF that they can print from their printer at home. I'm gonna put it on 8x11 pages, so it's nothing fancy that you have to go out and print. Or if you do have to go somewhere to print it, it would be very cheap to print. I would recommend printing it on a cardstock, but you're absolutely free to print it on literally whatever paper you like. More information on that to come as we work out the kinks. Normally, I would like you guys to get this PDF the moment you ordered the book, but again, because everything's been shut down and slowed down, and we're just trying to figure out alternatives, this is the best we can do. On top of everybody getting that though, we're also going to be doing multiple sweepstakes throughout the pre-ordering. Signed posters, signed prints of my paintings. We might just f*** around and give you guys exclusive digital downloads of unreleased music. There is still a lot up in the air, and I wish I had a little bit cleaner of an answer to give you guys, but again, we're just trying to figure it out. But everybody who pre-orders will be getting extra exclusives on top of chances to win more prizes. Okay, so now that all of that is out of the way, everybody click the link below and pre-order, please. It would mean the world to me. Do you hear that? There's a garbage truck driving by right now to take my book. Wait for real. Can you go? Listen, I get it, my poetry's trash, but like, honestly, perfect. That was perfect timing. Thank you, sir. That wasn't divine intervention. Okay, I want to start by saying this. I'm a public figure and I put out my art publicly. By doing that, I am fully open to reviews and thus criticism. This is not new. There are people who make videos and articles tearing apart Quentin Tarantino, saying he's a terrible director. He's still one of the most famous and respected filmmakers
Are you comparing yourself to Quentin Tarantino at this
of
very
all
moment?
time. I've seen videos saying that Ariana Grande's voice is in vocal decline. It is not. She's still one of the most recognizable and powerful voices of our generation, hands down. I literally just heard Gordon Ramsay talk on Hot Ones about a food critic that he absolutely hates because he wrote a review saying that Gordon Ramsay's food is terrible. It's Gordon Ramsay. He's one of the most renowned chefs in the world. Now, this is obviously not to say that I'm on the same level or of the same caliber as Quentin Tarantino, Ariana Grande, or Gordon Ramsay, but it does go to show that people will have differing opinions. And just because you like something that someone doesn't like, or you don't like something that someone does like, doesn't make it inherently good or bad. That is what art is. It's subjective. I truly don't get upset when people make fun of my music or my poetry because it's a matter of preference. And at the end of the day, I'm still working on my craft and growing, and there's a lot of people out there who do like it. I'm not creating for people who don't like my stuff. I'm creating for people who do. I don't read young adult novels because they're not for me. I was too old to enjoy the Hunger Games in their entirety when they came out. It's just not for me. I also don't read or watch science fiction because it's just not for me. I also don't watch The Bachelor because it's just not for me. And you could argue why The Bachelor is bad, but it's still like the #1 TV show in America because a lot of people still like it. There's clearly an audience, it's just not you. So if I don't like something, does that make it bad? No. It's a matter of preference. And that's art, baby! As long as people are talking.
Okay, but yes, that is 100% true. Art is subjective, everyone has their own preferences, not everything is made for everyone. But if so many of your fans do not like your book, I mean, I'm confused as to why you're marketing it to them. If you think it's made for a different audience, why did you go so far and go all out and constantly talk about it and promote it to your audience? You know, there has to be some kind of overlap here in the audience that you have on YouTube and the audience that you create your poetry or your books for.
Talking about my art, I'm happy about it. It doesn't take my book off the shelves, and it sure as hell isn't going to stop me from creating. I care very deeply and very, very passionately about my work. After I put out Adultolescence, Simon & Schuster offered me another contract almost right away. I didn't sign that contract until a few months ago after I knew that I made Dandelion the best that it could be. I worked on this book for 2.5 years. Now, this is not to say that I don't love Adultolescence, because I do. This book is very, very special to me. It's a very misunderstood book, and I'll get to that. But I admit, I looked through it, and a lot of the pages feel rushed because they were. And it's also full of a lot of insecurity. There's a lot of humor in here. I leaned a lot more heavily into the jokes and the puns and the wordplay. And that's what it was, more than trying to be a serious poetry book. But it was marketed as a Shel Silverstein parody. And that is the one place I do care to defend Adultolescence. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Shel Silverstein, he is a children's book writer who also wrote in a bunch of really heavy, dark shit amongst his silliness. I should have been prepared! Okay, The Light in the Attic is one of his more famous ones. What did the carrot say to the weed? Let us rest, I'm feeling beat. What did the paper say to the pen? I feel quite all right, my friend. What did the teapot say to the chalk? Nothing, you silly. Teapots can't talk. It's silly, it's fun, but then every once in a while...
It's silly, it's fun. I read those books when I was maybe 5, 6. Is probably the youngest I remember reading them with my older sister, who is 4 years older than me. So under the age of 10, both of us enjoying those poems together. It's not, you know, young adults or teenagers buying Shel Silverstein because it's endlessly entertaining. We buy them now for the nostalgic value, but when we enjoyed Shel Silverstein, it's because we were kids. And then you look back and you see some of the more adult themes, you know? But let's hear her out.
He'll do something like, I met a ghost, but he didn't want my head. He only wanted to know the way to Denver. I met a devil, but he didn't want my soul. He only wanted to borrow my bike a while. I met a vampire, but he didn't want my blood. He only wanted 2 nickels for a dime. I keep meeting all the right people at all the wrong times. I love this. Because this one, if you're a child reading it, it's disguised as just something silly. But if you put another layer to it, knowing what I know about Shel Silverstein, he's basically saying that he wishes he was dead. And I think that's beautiful, and I think that's powerful. I'm also very heavily inspired by Bo Burnham. I think I talk about him in every single podcast or interview I've ever done. He's inspired my career in so many ways since I was 15 years old. I've looked up to him, and when he put out his poetry book, that was what really gave me the strength and inspiration to publish publish my poetry too, because before that I was always just like tweeting out sad limericks at 2 a.m. Bo's book is very silly. You're afraid of sharks? Really? They don't have bones. They have cartilage. Are you afraid of ears too? She could light up a room with her smile, and she could really light one up with her flamethrower. Timmy.
Yeah, Bo Burnham is a comedian. I don't think he ever marketed his book as being a very serious, critical piece of art, whereas Gabby did. She said it's so complex, it's so deep, there are so many raw emotions. Like, it's basically what she said with Dandelion, like, you can look at it 6 different ways and all the pages talk to each other and they all kind of go together and you can read it in any order and it all connects, and it doesn't. Overall, it just feels very immature. And if she had marketed this as being goofy, silly, it's all for fun and there are a few serious poems in there, like, maybe it would have been received better, but she kept the narrative going that this was going to be a very deep and very complex piece of art. And that's why people were disappointed, I think.
He took tools and toys and rocks and played all day in the quicksand box. They're fun, they make you smile, but then he has this beautiful poem about suicide. I hung myself today. Hanged? Whatever. The point is I hanged myself today and I'm still hanging. I keep hoping that someone will come home and cut me down, but then I remember that if I knew someone like that, I wouldn't be up here. That's just how I wanted my book to read, was just a bunch of silliness. I want you to laugh. I want you not to take it too seriously, but then I do want to express my heart. And I do think that's what I accomplished with Adultolescence if you read it in conjunction with the title being Adultolescence, which is a mashup of the word adult and adolescence. A description that says, in poems ranging from the sing-song rhythms of children's verses to sophisticated confessional style, Gabby explores what it means to feel like a kid and an adult all at once. So this book was very adult themes written from the lens of a child, or written through the lens of children's poems. I'm talking about very adult feelings like suicide, depression, anxiety, mental health, eating disorders, assault, and abuse the way a child would, or in a way that is easier for a child to understand. Sorry, I'm getting emotional because I've never opened up about my trauma or been as transparent as I wish I could be, or as people would like me to be, because I have a very difficult time talking about it, like I said, even in therapy. So this book was the first step for me to be able to, vocalize and verbalize some things in a way that I could veil it in humor and lightheartedness, but still be able to tell my secrets without oversharing or hurting other people. So this book gave me a lot of power to open up about shit that I had been swallowing for years, and I know that a lot of people who have read it got it because they've had similar experiences. So sorry, there might be a silly poem about sleeping and dreaming, but it's really about laying in bed and wishing that you were dead, if you read between the lines. Or there might be a little one about a baby bird falling out of the nest, which is just a very simple, childish rhyme, but that was my way of expressing that death is sometimes feels like it's the only way to be free. And then there's a lot of little silly ones that have been taken and passed around, like every day is just a battle between, am I too tired to eat or too hungry to sleep? And you can read that at surface level and just let it be a funny, relatable, stupid thing that you chuckle at. But if you give it the benefit of the doubt that there might be something more, you might see it as something that's saying sometimes depression gets so heavy that even the bare minimum of living, which is surviving, becomes a chore.
That's one that I haven't seen too many people criticize, because I mean, it is a very common thought, or a very common, like, not meme, but it's a very shareable thing. Like, that's a very relatable thing. And so I haven't seen too many people criticize that.
So for the most part, sorry, time to mock that up. I like to write in a way that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways depending on how you read it or where you put the emphasis, which in my opinion is what all good poems do. One of my favorite poems was by William Williams growing up about the plum in the icebox, which I'm actually going to look up because I don't want to butcher it. I'm very inspired by William Williams. So a lot of you might have probably have read this. I've eaten the plums that were in the icebox and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. It's very easy to look at this poem and say, I don't care. Why am I reading about a plum in the icebox? And that's the beauty about it is you're reading it and you're trying to figure out why you're reading a poem about a plum in the icebox, because there is something beautiful about just writing about the mundane and finding the beauty in the small moments. But it could also be about temptation. It could be about betraying somebody. It could be about trying to get something off of your chest and having to confess something because it's eating you alive. Or it could be about regretting something and saying sorry, but secretly you're not really that sorry because they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. And knowing something is wrong and doing it anyway, even though you know it's wrong when you're doing it. Like, there's so many ways to read this poem. And on surface level, it's about eating plums in the icebox. And that's what I think I did with Adultolescence. I think a really good example in the new book of this, I'll show you a couple. I love this spread. You see an open closet door with...
Okay, this feels like just a big promo for Dandelion.
The monster's hand holding a flower out. So I want to focus on that first. What is a monster if not just an animal we don't know? Which seems like it could be kind of simple, not much to think into it, but you can deduce that it means, okay, so maybe we're just afraid of what we don't understand. And maybe we're creating monsters in our head. And then you see it with the word closet and you think, oh, okay, so a monster in a closet. Got it. But if you think more closely on the word closet and how that might relate to the poem, because oftentimes my titles have the ability to change the meaning of the poem entirely. What is a monster if not just an animal we don't know? Goes from thinking about making monsters where they don't exist in the closet, or is a piece about homophobia. And people stay in the closet because people treat them like monsters, because people who don't understand what it is to be gay and look at it as an abomination, they look at them as monsters. That is the reason people stay in the closet. So this little poem about a monster in the closet is actually about homophobia. And then if you look at it with the illustration, you see it as this monster in the closet reaching his arm out, but he's holding a flower and offering you a flower as the wishes blow away. Now if you look on the page next to it, I love this book so much, guys. I could fucking cry. I already did cry. It's about a little girl being afraid of a monster and her dad asking, do you want me to check the curtains? Do you want me to check in the closet? And you'll notice that it's in a black box written in white. So if you look at the two pages together, you're hearing the conversation as the monster inside the closet. That's why it's dark. And then when you look on the next page and you see that same black inside, you see the monster reaching out, offering you his flowers and making a wish for you to stop feeling that way. I really highly encourage you guys to dig in when you get this book and don't take anything at face value. Dig. There's a lot of secrets. There's a lot to play with in here. There's a lot of interaction. The pages play together. They continue sometimes onto 4 pages at a time. Fun fact about my titles, you will very rarely find a poem that I wrote that uses a word for the title that is used in the poem. It's always an additional word because I always use it to change the meaning of the poem. This book and Adultolescence is filled with riddles and puzzles that I want you to solve. I'm inviting you to solve them.
Okay. The explanation of that is fine, and I think that could definitely be applied to different poems in Adultolescence. But the problem isn't that Gabby is incapable of writing complex poetry. The problem is that she sold you something that wasn't real. She sold us something that wasn't true. Everything is so complex. It's an amazing piece of art. Like, she had this whole concept for the book, and she followed through with it on some of the poems. But you cannot tell me that every single poem in here has multiple meanings and is just endlessly complex unless you're lying. Like, unless you're gonna sit here and like make up some BS interpretation of it. You just can't. Page 168, the title of the poem is Link. And the contents of the poem are in bio. Come on. And I could say something like, oh, it's a statement on how important it is for self-promotion to exist when you're trying to create a presence and succeed in the online world. Link in bio, because everyone's always trying to link to something else that they're selling or something else that they're trying to get out of you and promote themselves to get even bigger and grow even faster. And we're in a greedy world, and so we're constantly saying the words link in bio. But I don't think that just doesn't resonate with me. That is something that like somebody completely pretentious would say, to be completely honest. And if you like pretension, that's great. Maybe you can use that explanation. But at the same time, it's not enjoyable. And I think that's another part of the thing, is so many of these poems just aren't enjoyable. And some of them aren't that deep. Like, I'm sure Gabby has an explanation for coffee, but it's, I woke up and put on a pot of coffee. I am my father. I left the pot on and burnt it. I am my mother. It's a very common theme about how we turn into our parents as we grow up. It's not that deep. And so my problem isn't that I think she's a terrible writer or that I think she doesn't have the capacity to write complex passages. It's that reading the book, some of it was good, a lot of it was just not enjoyable, a lot of it felt very immature, and I get it, she's writing through the lens of a child talking about trauma, but that's not what the whole book is about, and she knows it. And she said a lot of it was rushed. And when you rush, the complexity sometimes just isn't there. And that's okay. Like, it's all right. But for her to continue to defend it, it's just like, you have to admit that some of these are literally just throwaways. They're just stuff you put in here because you were on a deadline and you didn't think that you could finish in time. You just gotta admit it. You just gotta say that that's what happened, because that is very clearly what happened with a lot of these poems.
Beyond all this, I guess my one thing that I would ask of you guys as readers is please just read it the way it's meant to be read, which is a light, enjoyable, digestible read. People aren't scrambling very often to read the Iliad or the Odyssey. They're great works, but it's not what people want to sit down and read. I assume, if it's anything like when I was in school, most students aren't jumping for joy when they're assigned Shakespeare. But people are really into books like Milk and Honey. Poetry, like YouTube and music and everything else, evolves. You have to evolve with it. That's why Vine was so popular, because it was short, easily digestible, 6 seconds at a time. So I wrote short, easily digestible, relatable poems that people want to read and what I want to write. And you can read them at surface level and get a laugh, or you can read a little deeper and see the hidden messages that I've tucked inside. And some are just fun. I saw the one, time is relative, beauty is relative, family is relative. Somebody write, you guys are really out here supporting Gabbie Hanna when she wrote this in all seriousness. I didn't write in all seriousness. I wrote it as a joke because I love Bo Burnham, because I love Shel Silverstein, because I love dealing with my trauma in funny ways. The book is self-aware. There's a poem that I've seen shared around called Link. The title of the poem is Link. The poem is in bio. So when you read the title and the poem together, it is Link in bio. It's not meant to be taken that seriously in a lot of places. It's a parody of a children's poetry book. It's a parody of myself. Feel free to laugh. Not everything has to be so serious.
But she says, oh, every page is, like, every poem is so complex. Like, is it or isn't it? Is it a serious poetry book filled with different complexities and hidden meanings and secret messages and all this depth? Or is it a joke? Like, because the thing is, you, like I said, with Shel Silverstein, I've never read Bo Burnham's book. I can't say anything about that. I would not read Shel Silverstein now as an adult in my leisure time. I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. I loved Shel Silverstein as a kid. If I ever have kids, I will buy Shel Silverstein books and read them to them. But I wouldn't just read Shel Silverstein now, because a lot of it is catered to kids, but there is a little bit of the darker themes in there that you find goofy and silly and kind of bizarre as a kid, and then you look back and you're like, man, that's kind of dark. But it was because we read them as kids that they were enjoyable. So, I mean, I feel like she's kind of going back and forth here on this. Tell me your thoughts. Like, do you think that she's being, like, kind of confusing and contradicting herself, or do you get where she's coming from? Let me know.
So, all this to say, go pre-order my book. Yes, I've obviously seen the talk around my book. Yes, I do agree that there's a lot that could have been done better. Just like my old music isn't as good as my new music. People improve, and yes, I would say that Dandelion is a massive step up, and my editors and publishers agree. I'm very proud of Dandelion in the topics covered, in the writing, and especially in the illustration. I'm so proud of my artwork. I'm so blown away by myself and my growth, and I'm so excited to share that with you. I did watch a video about my book, and it's not because I can't take constructive criticism. I beg for it. I send each poem, each drawing, each demo of each song to 10 to 15 people because I'm so f***ing insecure about my work. And I ask, how can this be better?
She's at okay, like 5, but still. Gabby's nope, not gonna go into past topics that I've criticized her on. We're not going to do it.
I've scrapped a ton of poems from both books. I've scrapped entire drawings. I've scrapped entire songs because they weren't up to par. I am constantly asking my colleagues and my peers, how can I be better? And I take that advice very, very to heart because, as I said, I am very passionate about...
Your colleagues and your peers aren't your audience, though. And the people who bought your book are your audience. And the stans loved it. Maybe some other people who are not diehard stans enjoyed it. But as an overall majority, we just weren't thrilled with it. And you have to take that into heart. And I hate that she used this as literally just a big promo for Dandelion without ever, like, it's a clickbait. Like, she's not taken anything that the people who have criticized her in a mature way to heart. She's literally just using this as a way to say, you don't get my poetry, but it's also very deep and fun, but it's also very complex, so you don't understand it, but also you should just take it and read it and enjoy it because it's silly and goofy and it's a parody of a children's book, but it's very complex and there are many different levels of depth in this, and maybe you're just not the audience for it. Also, pre-order my book. You know, like, she's only addressing this because she's promoting a new poetry book, and I don't like that.
About my work to the point of driving my producers and my editors mad. But in what world would it make sense for me to click a video that says Gabbie Hanna is terrible, or Gabbie Hanna can't write, or Gabbie Hanna's poetry is bad, whatever it is? Because at some point I feel like people really started hiding behind the term constructive criticism while removing the constructive part and leaving only criticism. But constructive criticism doesn't belittle people, it doesn't name call people, it doesn't say that your work is bad or terrible, or tell somebody that they can't or shouldn't be doing something. And there might have been really sound advice in those videos, but I don't know that. Because I'm not going to click onto a video that's saying that I'm bad or not talented, because to me that says that the intention of the video was more for entertainment and less for trying to help me grow as an artist. So I do take constructive criticism from people who offer constructive criticism, but I'm also not going to sit around and spend my day clicking through videos saying I'm terrible in the chance that there might be something actually helpful in there. The minute you start insulting somebody is the minute they stop listening. And I think that's just sort of how communication has gotten in general on YouTube. And I honestly don't fault or blame anybody. Like, I'm not mad at people who made the videos because I understand, again, that I'm a public figure, but also that's what pays the bills. People like that type of content, and that's not new either. Tabloids have been around forever. My name is being very heavily searched, and YouTubers understand how SEO works and how the search optimization works. I put myself into this position so that I could make a living making art. And I am doing that. And I promise you guys, I am very okay. You take the bad with the good, and the good very much outweighs the bad. I promise you that. And I also want to remind everybody watching that you can do exactly what I did. I encourage it. The world needs more art, and I welcome all of it because there are people out there who will like it. The only thing that obviously really hurt about all of this is, being ridiculed by your peers obviously isn't a fun feeling. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't bother me in that aspect. I just miss the old YouTube community a lot. I remember joining in the first place because I've never been good at talking to people in real life or making friends. So ever since AIM and MySpace, I've made my friends online instead of in person. And I remember a time on YouTube when I used to watch that creators used to support each other and celebrate each other's successes and projects. And I thought, wow, that seems like a really great community to be a part of, and I wish I could be a part of that. And it does feel like the community has shifted in a direction where it's more cool and popular to criticize each other's work instead of bring each other up and cheer each other on. And I do feel like in a lot of ways, and I'm not just including myself, that it feels like people would much rather see others fail than succeed. So it does hurt to see other creators who I know work as hard as I do and care as much as I do, like, laugh at me, but it just puts me back in the place of where I wanted to join YouTube in the first place, to escape from that, and like seeing people who I've actually I have friendships with in person, or have had really nice encounters with in person, kind of jump on the bandwagon, definitely stunned. But I've always been the loser. I've always been the one who it's funny to pick on, like, my whole life. I've always been the outcast, and this isn't new to me. That's why I started writing and drawing in the first place, and I always rise up and create something beautiful in those times. So this isn't new to me, and it won't be the last of me. Anyways, I have 3 editions of this book that I am very, very proud of, available for pre-order right now. And I also have a...
This is the only thing that I will say in response to all of the thoughts that just ran through my head is, if you want to see support and feel supported and be a part of a community that lifts people up, you've also got to be willing to be the one lifting people up. Not tearing them down, not doing whatever it takes to get ahead, not hanging out with people of questionable morality because it does good things for your career instead of supporting a friend. And also, I don't like the mentality of, this is like a completely different thing. I don't like the mentality of like, I've always been the loser, I've always been the one that gets made fun of, it's funny to make fun of me. That's how life has always been, so why should this be any different? Because you create your own reality, and Gabby has definitely mentioned being into like manifestation and law of attraction, and everything within that says you don't say that kind of stuff about yourself. You can say, in the past, I was somebody who experienced this, but not now. Not now. Now I am a confident person who connects with others well and surrounds myself with people who will uplift and support me and accept me as I am. I don't want to say that someone's crying for sympathy, but as someone who has spoken about manifestation as she has, she would know that. Infer from that what you will.
Brand new song and music video that is a sister to this book, and the first single off of an EP coming out tonight at midnight. Well, the music video will be out tomorrow. Because of all the stuff I've been going through for the last few months, I've been inspired to create in a way that I haven't been inspired in a very long time. So thank you. And remember, you're not creating for the people who want to see you fail. You're creating for the people who want to see you win. Thank you guys so much for listening. Let me know if you'd be interested in a series where I read each poem out of Adultolescence and dissect it and break it down and tell you the full meaning behind all.
Would love to see that, to be completely honest.
All of them, because I'm super, super down. I've always liked the idea of not saying what poems mean, because I like people to apply their own interpretation to them. But if you want to know where I came from, let me know. I'm totally down. Thank you guys so much for listening. I did not expect to cry. I've been crying a lot lately. I cried on my live stream on my Patreon yesterday, and then I cried on my podcast that I recorded today. I'm just really emotional right now. I think it's because I'm emotional. Okay, I'm gonna go. Pre-order links down below. New music video tonight. Check out my Patreon. These are all my patrons. Absolutely amazing. The live streams have been my favorite part of Patreon. Leaking all my music and book stuff has been really fun, so thank you for being a part of it. This is this week's Showstopper of the Week. Thank you so much. As always, I love you very much. Thank you for being a part of my family. I'll see you next time.
Alrighty. That wasn't necessarily what I thought it was going to be, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Didn't love that. I don't want to harp on the things that I said throughout the entire video, so, I mean, I think if you watched all of this, you know where I'm at and how I'm kind of feeling. But like I said, she could have taken this opportunity to really just kind of come clean about her book, because like I said, there are some poems in there that are deep. You can look at them in a few different ways. You can really like dig in there for meaning, but there are some that just aren't. And my biggest thing is like, just be straight up and I will respect you so much. If she were to come on here and say, I'm proud of some of this book, I'm really proud of some of these poems, but I was in a rush I was under a deadline, I didn't have enough content in there, and so some of them I just threw together. Some of them are just meaningless, they're dumb, they're silly, they don't have that meaning, and I can't say that they're as complex as the rest of the poems in there. That's what I would respect more, instead, like her having a straight up statement like that, instead of kind of going back and forth and saying like, I'm so proud of this, it's so complex. but also it's silly and it should be taken at face value. You know, she just went back and forth a lot, and I don't love it. And yet, I still have this. I think I have it to prove that in every video I do on Gabbie Hanna, that I don't hate her. I'm not a hater. I'm not someone who wants to see her fail. I'm just someone who was really invested in her for quite a long time, who just is disappointed, I guess, in where she has ended up, and I feel kind of swindled by her. So, no hate to Gabby. Definitely don't want to see her fail. I hope that Dandelion does well. I hope that it is, I hope it lives up to the hype that she's putting out for it. Let me know what you thought of her video. If you think that maybe the majority of us just don't understand adolescence, or if we understand it pretty well and it's just not as complex as she thinks, if you think that this was a good explanation of her book, or if you think this was just a promo for Dandelion, because that's kind of what it feels like to me. But I want to hear your thoughts on it. While you were doing that, if you would consider liking this video or subscribing to my channel, that would be incredible. And if you've subscribed already, thank you so much. I'm so appreciative of you, and I love being able to just sit here, hang out, and talk about whatever. If you're not following me on Instagram or Twitter, definitely feel free to hang over to one of those apps and hang out with me there. I post a lot more on Instagram. I'm in my stories, hanging out, talking to you, and just having a good time. So that's Inside the Honeycomb. There is a link in my bio, though. Link in bio. With all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Thank you so much for watching. Please be kind to people, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.